off the mark. One morning, Sir Topham Hatt came to Thomas, Percy, Lady, and Daisy at the sheds.
I have plans to expand Stafford Harbor in order to make it a more desirable place for ships to come in with goods and passengers, he said. Thomas, Percy, and Lady, I want you three to take construction supplies. It will be hard work, but I'm sure you'll be able to handle it.
The three engines were delighted. Yes, sir, they whistled. Then Sir Topham Hatt turned to the diesel rail car.
Daisy, he said, I want you to carry more passengers as well as yours.
What? Spluttered Daisy. But there's not enough room inside me.
No, but you'll pull Annie, Clarabelle, Destiny, Melody, and Symphony to carry more passengers, just as well as some of yours. You will do as I said.
Daisy sniffed, purred reluctantly about her work. From that day forward, while Daisy was busy taking over the passenger duties, Thomas, Percy, and Lady were kept very busy collecting heavy building supplies from Stafford yards and bringing them down to the harbor. The work was very busy. They often found themselves very exhausted at the end of the long day's work. One evening, Richard, the green engine, was waiting at the water tower when he heard an exhausted whistle. Thomas rolled up behind him.
Hello there, he peeped cheerfully. You must be Thomas. Gordon, Henry, and James told me all about you. I'm Richard, by the way.
Thomas panted from exhaustion and didn't reply.
I say, you look like you've been through the ringer. What's the problem?
Richard asked. It's the harbor project, replied Thomas wearily. The building supplies are so heavy that at the end of every day, my axles are aching. I just want a drink so I can go home and rest. Oh, I'm bushed. Richard frowned.
Why did you just say so sooner? I pull loads like that in my sleep. I can handle the heavy building supplies and take a ton of weight off your buffers. I'm all about helping out a little fella.
Thomas scoffed. He found that Richard was rather considerate. No, thank you, Richard, he huffed. Work isn't worth it if it isn't hard, and I don't need help from big, snobby engines like you. Richard looked concerned as he finished filling up. Besides, continued Thomas, the harbor's on my branch line. You're much too heavy to go down there. The tracks aren't strong enough. As Richard puffed away, he looked back at the tank engine and smiled grimly to himself.
That feller's a little grumpy,
He chuckled and rolled along his way towards the tippet sheds. Over the next few days, Richard kept an eye on the three little engines as they ran back and forth from the harbor, and Daisy pulled the coaches to and from every station to drop and pick up passengers. Whenever he noticed one of them struck them, he would offer them help, but their answer was always the same. No, thank you, Richard, whistled Lady kindly. I can handle it. Thanks for the offer. It was nice meeting you. Besides, you're too heavy, added Percy, and began to struggle out of the station. You'll split up the tracks too, snorted Daisy, and flounced away with 5 coaches. Richard watched as the other engines were having busy work.
They really insisted on me doing this themselves, didn't they?
He thought.
Yes, They'll get tired, I guess.
One day, Thomas returned to the shunting yard, feeling tired from pulling another heavy train. As he tried to catch his breath, he saw Nico shunting more building supplies onto another train and groaned. I just got back from one of these trains. This one isn't for you, Thomas, Nico chuckled. Your next train isn't due for another few hours. Oh, good, sighed Thomas. Nico, I'm gonna take a rest in the sheds. Come find me when my next train is due. And he puffed away. All right, Thomas, said Nico. When I'm about, it was cut short by Thomas's whistle. To leave, he finished. Just then, Richard rolled into the yard and saw Nico right behind the freight cars.
What are you around for, Nico? Is there anyone on this train you shunted?
He asked curiously. Well, Thomas has gone for a rest in the sheds for a while, Nico replied. Richard raised an eyebrow before looking around the yard to see any other engine that was nearby since Thomas left. He then looked at Nico and smiled.
That poor little feller's sure resting comfortably. Well, don't worry. I'll take this train myself,
He decided.
It should be easy for a big engine like me.
Nico didn't know any better, smiled. Okay, Richard, he whistled. He steamed away. Richard backed onto the cars and grinned.
They'll be thanking me for weeks,
He boasted.
It feels good to help little Thomas out.
The shunter coupled them up, and Richard blew his whistle before puffed humbly towards the branch line. His train was heavy, and the building supplies were loaded behind him. Richard soon reached the bridge above the harbor as he stormed across with his freight cars. But under there, he did notice the sign standing by the line saying, Heavy Limits. Richard's chassis began to feel strange.
Oh, must be getting old from the sore. I need to pay a visit to the works,
he muttered as the rails creaked in him. The freight cars rattled along behind him. Richard soon approached under the bridge at the harbor, where Percy and the lady were waiting to take on call on the siding. They were surprised by Richard. Richard, what are you doing down here? Asked the lady, astonished. You're way too heavy, Percy gasped. Richard scoffed as he passed the two engines.
I'm just helping you guys out before.
Suddenly, there was a loud creaking sound that echoed through the harbor, followed by the clatter of wheels on ballast. Richard groaned in pain as he managed harder to stop. His wheels crushed the rails on the harbor foundation. His crew gawked at the mess. Oh, you've made the rails sink into the ground, old boy, said the driver. You really were too heavy. Richard looked down at his buffers in embarrassment. Richard was so heavy that Judy and Jerome were needed to rescue him. It took a long time. It was getting darker when he finally found himself with his wheels all firmly back on the rails. Sir Topham was not happy.
Weight limits exist for a reason, Richard. An engine of your size can just go galloping down branch lines. Sir, I was trying to help, Richard cried out.
Did Thomas, Percy, Lady, and Daisy ask for your help, Richard? Sir Topham had asked sternly. Richard looked at the 4 engines. They looked awkward. Richard sighed.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
Sir Topham had turned and walked away.
I hope you've learned your lesson, Richard. Yes, sir. I have, sir,
said Richard. Thomas, Percy, Lady, and Daisy all took Richard to the works. His chassis was very sore, and he felt sorry for himself.
I'm sorry I took cars away to the harbor. I should have listened to you all. I was trying to help out the little fellers and gals, you know.
That's all right, Richard, sighed but smiled Thomas. We know you meant well, said Percy. The fact that you were so willing to help us out is really nice of you, puffed Lady. We just sometimes need help, and sometimes don't, Daisy finished. Richard seemed pensive for a moment before finally laughing.
Thank you for helping me out when I needed it, he said kindly. I'd be stuck in the harbor all night without you all taking me back to the mainline.
Thomas, Percy, Lady, and Daisy laughed as they clattered all the way to the works. Richard was soon back at work. He still likes to help out the little fella, but...
Hey, Nico, need a hand?
Yes, please. He always makes sure the little feller wants his help first.